So the average human breathes about 26,000 times per day. Now, being middle distance runners, I'm going to guess that we're slightly on the higher end of that average based on the fact that you and I are constantly out there huffing and puffing our way through a run. So what we want to know is, how important is the way that we take those breaths? Does it really matter whether we breathe fast or slow, deep or shallow, through the nose or through the mouth? There are a couple of questions that I want to unpack for you today. Before we get into it, I think one of the most important things that we can point out is there has been a massive misunderstanding when it comes to the topic of breathing for performance. It's something that deep divers have understood, but for some reason hasn't really been acknowledged or accepted amongst too many distance runners. And that is the fact that so often when we're getting tired out there and we start to feel puffed, it is not because we are lacking oxygen, but because of a buildup of CO2. And from that foundation, many of us have misunderstood the role that oxygen consumption plays in performance. We often settle for the fact that, okay, we just need to breathe through our mouth because it means more oxygen is getting to our lungs, and if more oxygen is getting to our lungs, then that is better. One of the things that I loved from James Nestor's best-selling book, Breath, recently, is he unpacks this science for us, and he looks at the basics around this principle. He explains that it's not simply a matter of getting more oxygen into our lungs, which is the most important thing, but getting the right amount of good oxygen into our lungs, which is the most important thing. And that is the reason that he came to the conclusion, based on 120 years of science and also personal studies in his own life, that nose breathing is the best way for us to breathe, not only throughout our day-to-day life, but particularly when we're out running. Now, before you go, because you've got a blocked nose and you can't possibly breathe through your nose just yet, don't run away. We're going to look at ways for you to develop your nose breathing later in this video. But before we get there, why is it that he recommends nose breathing? Well, there's a couple of basics. The major reasons that nose breathing has been promoted in his book is based on the science that says that breathing through our nose not only heats up the air and purifies the air, but it also moistens the air so that when that air hits our lungs, it's more ready to be absorbed by our muscles in a more efficient way. But how do we possibly do that if our nose is blocked? Well, the good news is we can train our nose to be a more effective breather. In fact, our nasal tissue can be developed just like our six-pack can be developed. It requires some heavy work. Our nasal passages can be developed, can be strengthened, can be widened. But in order for them to do those things, we actually need to invest in developing them. But where do we start, and how do we actually develop our nose so that it becomes able to breathe in comfortably and deliver that oxygen around our body at its most pure level? I'm going to give you 5 strategies that James Nestor speaks about in his book that I've also implemented in my own life and experienced some massive rewards. See, the reason this topic is so interesting to me is because in 2010 I had my first sinus surgery, and in 2013 I had my second, and in 2015 I was getting ready to do my third when my grandma-in-law told me to stop drinking dairy. I got rid of the dairy, my sinuses cleared up, and I was actually able to start taking steps towards breathing through my nose. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about before you get into your breathing is, first, consider what you're eating. Obviously, the food that we're eating has an impact on our body, and dairy has the capacity to really be a big blocker of people. I know I had some negative response to it, which had constant sinusitis going on in my head. It constantly promoted sinusitis. It constantly made me feel clogged, and even if I wanted to breathe through my nose, I couldn't. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is just have a look at your diet. See what it is that you're eating. Maybe try an elimination diet. Try getting rid of dairy if you are someone who is constantly clogged up and feeling like you can't breathe through your nose. I know it's terrible news. I used to love my yogurt and my ice cream and my cheese, but I promise you the results of getting rid of that stuff made my life so much more enjoyable and made the next steps that I'm about to offer you so much more possible. The second thing that I'm going to encourage you to do, which James Nestor speaks about, is when you go to bed each night, to promote this idea of nasal breathing, to strengthen and develop that nasal tissue, is get a Charlie Chaplin size piece of tape and place it over the center of your mouth. This means that throughout the course of the night, your mouth is not going to just naturally come open and encourage that mouth breathing, but our nose is going to take over the main part of the driving. After a night of practicing this, or after some consistent nights of practicing this, you're going to notice how much easier it gets. Now, while this is new, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but what doesn't feel uncomfortable when it's new? So a little Charlie Chaplin size piece of tape over the center of your mouth. If you really wake up in a panic, you can still breathe through the corners of your mouth. You can still talk through the corners of your mouth. But after some consistent practice doing this particular exercise, you're going to start to notice some positive changes in your ability to breathe through your nose. The third thing which I'm going to recommend you doing is training either side of your nose, training each nostril. Now, this is a technique which so many yoga teachers have understood is beneficial for thousands of years, yet without practice we can't really see the benefit. It might feel a little bit foreign, but I highly recommend you try this. So with this particular exercise, you're simply going to cover up one nostril and breathe in, and cover up the other nostril and breathe out, then breathe back in through that nostril, and then cover up your other nostril, and repeat that process for as long as you're comfortable doing. You might want to do it for 5 minutes, you might want to do it for 10 minutes. You might be like me and just do it while your baby's in bed and you're trying to entertain yourself while he's going to sleep. It doesn't matter when you do it, but a practice in this particular exercise for a consistent basis is also going to promote the ease of breathing through your nose. The fourth thing, and perhaps the most basic, is just at different times throughout your day, ask yourself the question, am I breathing through my mouth or through my nose? Just a habit of developing this question in your life is going to continually encourage you to come back to your breath and just figure out what particular style of breathing you're encouraging. Obviously, what you practice, you promote. So in order to be able to breathe naturally, consistently through your nose, ask yourself throughout the day, okay, am I breathing through my nose? Am I breathing through my mouth? If you're doing the wrong thing, come back to your nose and practice it there. The next thing that we are going to start practicing, once we feel as though throughout our day-to-day life we're feeling a little bit better, a little bit more confident, a little bit more natural of breathing through our nose, we're going to start to implement this into our slow runs. Now, this is going to be a difficult phase because for any of us who are used to just breathing through our mouth, we have to break that habit. So you're going to feel as though this is quite difficult. Now, you can start it and you can section it off. You might do a minute on and a minute off, or you might just go straight out and try and do your 15 to 20 minute really easy run with your mouth taped up or at least closed. Obviously, it's going to take us a little bit of time to get to a point where our interval sessions and our races are done through our nose. And if you get to a point in your race where you're just desperate to breathe through your mouth, obviously while you're learning, while you're training, you can do this. But what we are aiming to do is over time, we're going to encourage that breathing through our nose until it becomes completely natural and until our sinuses and our nostrils feel confident and comfortable getting the oxygen into our body through the nose. Before we finish up, I just want to remind you that this is going to take some time. Don't expect results tomorrow. If you've been practicing mouth breathing for the last 15 or 20 years, it's going to be difficult. Just like when I started touch typing or learning to touch type, I couldn't do it at the start. It seemed ineffective. I seemed slower than I originally was. But with time and practice and effort, it became the most natural way for me to sit behind a computer. The same is true with your breathing and these exercises. What feels unnatural at the beginning will gradually start to feel more and more natural until you'll get to a point where you can't imagine breathing any other way. Guys, I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on this particular breathing exercise. Have you done it before? Have you tried it before? How does it sound? But the main question that I want to hear from you today is, are you a nose or mouth breather? And are you open to trying something new? I've pinned that question in the comments below and would love to hear your opinion on it. Guys, we've got brand new videos coming out every week on all different aspects of distance running. So make sure you subscribe so you're notified whenever one of those new videos comes out. In the meantime, guys, enter your comments below. Let's get that conversation going and I'll see you guys in the next video.